So I think we're live now. Varun.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Venkat. I'm a fifth sem student from PS University. You may know me or may not know me. With me is Varun Seshu. So today we're going to be hosting a webinar explaining the basics of how to get your first Django app running. So Varun, something from you?
Hey everyone, I'm Varun Seshu. I'm in the same class as Venkat, Sem5, and I'm very sure you have definitely not heard of me.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
anyway.
before we start, let's just talk a bit about inGenius and the part, the hackathon that because of which we're holding this whole prep series. So inGenius is going worldwide this sem in its ninth iteration. It's a PS University ECC's annual hackathon, which has garnered a lot of popularity as of late. Last year we had some amazing sponsors, and this year also it's going to be really big. So make sure to tune in, participate, sign up. It's going to happen on October 30th and 31st, I think. Is that right? So that's that. Then one more thing is after this webinar is done, there will be a quiz that's going to be hosted on Amigos, and you should take part in that mainly because it will test how much you have actually learned during this webinar, and you can win cash prizes. And who doesn't
I
want to
should have
win cash? Yeah, so I think we can start now. Should I start sharing my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Can you see my screen? Okay, so let's begin. So right now what we're going to be doing in this webinar is we're going to have a simple code along. So, if you're next to your laptops or your gaming rig or your PC or whatever it is that you have with you and you're free, it'll be better for you to do what we are doing. So it'll help you learn a lot more and figure out, what is exactly happening where, and doing is always a better method of learning than just, watching a webinar. So since we have only 1.5 hours today, I'll be going a bit faster. If you have any questions or anything, make sure to link it in the YouTube, whatever chat, and we will respond to you. Yeah. So this is the app that we are going to be building. Now, what this is it's a basic to-do list app. So the functionality that this has, right, is each to-do has a title. So you can say task 1, it has some content where you can fill out whatever you want. So the title can be exercise or whatever. The content can be cardio 40 minutes or whatever like that. And then you can fill out the priority of your task. So is it very high priority, or is it not that high, or is it low? So you can add whatever to-dos are there in the database. It should show up over here, and you'll also have the capability to delete it. Right? I know this looks a bit bad, but me and Varun aren't really UX ninjas, so this is mainly just to show you how the backend works. Now, what we'll be doing for this webinar, right, is that we have 2 different repos. I think both are there in the YouTube description. Over here, we have Varun's repo, which is Varun's username / Django webinar. Here, everything has already been built and everything is ready. So we'll be using this for reference. And even you can look at this for files that we'll be copy pasting and everything. This one, on the other hand, which is my webinar, my Git repo, will be empty, and we'll be building this from the ground up along with you all. Yeah, we'll be following these steps as well that are given in the README. Let's start with the table that's going to be there in the database. So it's going to be only one table, right? It's going to have title, content, created at, and priority. So title is going to be whatever you want to fill. Content also is your own thing. Created at is going to be the date time at which you created the to-do, and priority is also going to be one that you choose. Now, if you know something even a bit about databases, right? ID is going to behave as the primary key, and this is auto-generated by Django, and it will happen in the backend that we will show you. Okay, for people who do not have virtual environments or SQLite 3 installed, right? I suggest you go to this repo, have a look at these two links. So this is regardless of whether you're on a Linux environment or on Windows. It has both of the links have directions to install both in your respective environment. Now let's talk about what a virtual environment actually is. So we have this huge sandbox, okay? Let's say this is your PC, and this is where all the program files are and where all the packages are installed and where everything is running. And everything's all fine and good. But one day you need to go and you need to run two different Django projects. And one Django project requires Django 2 and the other one requires Django 3. So naturally what you're going to do is install both of these, right? But after you install both, every time you write a Django command, what is going to happen is the computer will not know which one you want to use. So it'll throw an error. And to fix that, every time you enter the Django command, you're going to have to give the version or specify which version of Django you want to use. Now, this is really, actually, it's pretty bad practice. So to, I'll just delete this. So to, as a solution to this, virtual environments were created where instead of installing all these packages in the same global environment, you can use Python's venv package or virtual env package to create a different small sandbox, which is going to be a clean slate. There's going to be nothing over here. So you can pick and choose exactly what dependencies and packages you want to install and put it over here. That way, what happens is when you're using your PC, right, there are no versioning disputes. So the same package, but different versions. So it conflicts and it throws errors and it crashes and all that good stuff. So none of that happens. Another extremely crucial advantage of this is that if you are collaborating with someone else, right? So for this webinar, I'll be collaborating with Varun on the same project. What you can do is, once you have created your environment for the first time and installed whatever packages you need, you can just take all of those packages, output them into a requirements.txt file or any txt file. Okay, so it'll be written over there. And you can just put that in your Git repo. Now, the next time when Varun clones the repo and he wants to set up a similar environment so that the project runs properly, what he can do is he'll create a new environment and he'll just take all those dependencies from this and install it into this environment in one shot. What else? Yeah. So that is basically the use of what virtual environments do and what their uses are. We'll go back to this repo over here.
Hey, Venkat, just go back to the drawing once. Yeah, fantastic drawing.
Yeah, I tried. Yeah. So now that you know what a repo actually looks like, sorry, not repo, what am I saying? What a virtual environment actually is, we'll see what it looks like. So when you have a virtual environment activated, right, it'll show up over here on the left side of your prompt on the on the terminal in Ubuntu. So if you don't have any environment active, there's going to be nothing. This means that you're in your global environment. So as I said before, we will be using two different repos. One is going to be this one. So this is going to be my repo, which is inGenius Django webinar, and Varun's repo, which is just Django webinar. And we're going to build this one up from the start. So to start off, let's first create a virtual environment. Now, all the commands that I'm going to be typing out, right, they're going to be there in the repo on Varun's profile. So here is the first command. Python 3 -m when, and then here you're going to write out the name of your virtual environment. So for this webinar, I'm going to call my virtual environment to-do list _ environment. So this is my project environment, right? I'm inside my Git repo and I'll just create it. Now, as soon as you create it, you'll see that a new file has been created called to-do list _ environment. And the next thing we need to do is that we need to actually activate it. So from here, right now we have created an environment. This box has been created, right? But we have not told the computer explicitly that we're switching to this and that everything that we do has to be done in this other smaller box here. So to tell the computer that we're switching to this one over here, we're going to use the source command. So that's going to be source source to-do list environment /bin/activate. So this activate file is found in the bin of the virtual environment, and you will use that to activate the environment. So now you can see that this environment has been activated.
Hey Venkat, I just want to add one thing.
Yeah.
The particular command that you use might not work for all operating systems, right? So if you want to look at what command you need to use if you're in PowerShell or if you're in CMD, then you can just have a look at the README of the Django webinar repo. The link of that should be there in the description. Thank you.
Yeah. So now that we've activated our environment, the next thing that we have to do is obviously install Django. Now, to install Django, we can just simply use the Python package manager, which is pip over here. So pip3 install and Django. And it's going to install the vanilla version of Django, which is 3.1.1 as of now. Now, we have run this command, right? But we don't know what packages have been installed, where are they installed, what is happening. So for that, we're going to use another command called Pip Freeze. Now, what Pip Freeze does is, it will show you that in your current working environment, what all packages have been installed. Now, we installed Django on our own. We installed it manually. But why have these random packages also been installed? Now, these have been installed because Django depends on these packages to function properly. So it automatically got installed when we installed Django. Another thing that I want to mention is that I wrote over here that everything that once you, write down install all your packages manually, right? You can put them into a txt file, and then after that, pass it to the Git repo. So that's what we're going to do now. So the same pip3 freeze command, instead of just letting it output onto the terminal, we're going to pass the output into a file called requirements.txt. So if you see or whatever CLI or you see on your code editor, you'll see that a new file has been created with all of these dependencies written down in them. So this is done. Now the next time Varun needs to use this environment, he can just use this to install everything. Right, so let's move on to the next point, which is We have installed Django. We have created the requirements.txt file. Now what we need to do is start a project and start an app. So now one thing that makes Django as robust as it is that each Django project can have multiple apps. Now, what does that mean? The project when you say project in terms of Django, it's basically laying the foundation to whatever product you're going to build. So if I was going to build YouTube, for example, the project name will be YouTube, and the different apps that it will include will be maybe the search functionality as one app. Then there'll be the recommender system as one app. There will be the trending page as one app. Yeah. And similar to that, each Django project can have multiple different apps or segments that work together cohesively to form a bigger project. So let's go ahead and create our project. We'll initialize our project. So to do that, we're going to run the command called Django admin.
You need to change into your virtual environment first.
Right. Yeah, this is definitely something that you have to do. So you don't want to mess up on the global scope. So source to-do list environment /bin/activate. Yeah, now we'll start the project. Django admin start project space, whatever project name you want to give. So Varun, I think we're going with to-do
list, right?
Yeah,
right.
To-do list sounds good. So you do that and you should see a file pop up here. So this is a folder. So this folder, right, it'll have to-do list. So this will have inside it another folder called to-do list, and it'll have a manage.py file. So we'll go through what exactly these files are one by one, and we'll come back. But first, I want to show you that once you have run this command, essentially your Django project is up and running. So for that, we can just run, you change into the Django folder that you just created, right, to-do list, and then you run the command called Python 3 manage.py, which is this file over here, and then run server. So once you do that, you'll see this this error, this warning saying that you have 18 unapplied migrations. But for now, you can just ignore it. We'll come back to this in a second. So if you open your local host at port 8000, you should see that your Django project is up and running. This is the default Django page. Okay, so let's see what these files actually do. Now, wsgi.py and asgi.py are two files that stand for web server gateway interface and asynchronous server gateway interface respectively, and they are used only during development. So it's completely out of the scope of this webinar. Maybe we can take it up later, but we'll not be discussing anything more about these right now. So it's fine if you just leave them untouched. You can go ahead and look at what they do. So settings.py has a lot of important default settings configured as it is. Now you can go ahead and look through what this is, Google up what you want, but we'll be focusing only on one segment, which is the installed apps. Now, when you initialize your Django project, this gets auto-generated because these are all basic apps that come pre-built with Django to make life easier for the user. Now, when we create a new app, right, we'll come back to this page and we will add that app over here. Coming to urls.py, this file, what it does is it's going to act as your navigator. So supposing you go to the URL, right? You get this URL. This is the IP and the port. And after this, whatever comes over here is called the slug. So even on YouTube or whatever comes after youtube.com/ that stuff is called the slug. And essentially what this urls.py file is going to do is it's going to check what the slug is. And if that slug is valid, it's going to point you in a direction to go to the next area or location that you need to be sent to. Now, right now, the only URL pattern that exists is admin. And this is the default admin interface or dashboard that Django comes inbuilt with. We'll explore this in a bit. I think Varun will take that up. Other than that, we have manage.py, right? So manage.py is what it does is it's basically it provides a command line interface that allows us to interact with Django and run the core Django commands seamlessly. So right now I ran this command called manage.py run server. So it's just essentially a wrapper which allows you to run all these commands without the hassle of configuring them or doing anything else. Yeah, so that's these files. Now we'll start the next app. So that's going to be Python 3 manage.py start app, and then the app name that you want to give. So we'll be doing to-dos as the app name.
Right.
So once we do that, there'll be another folder that will show up over here called to-dos. Now you need to be very clear that even though these two look similar, right? The to-do list folder, which will have the same name as your project, is the entry point for the Django app. And you can create multiple apps, but there'll be only one such folder with these specific files over here. So I think, Varun, you want to explain these?
Right, sure. So I'm just going to go over some of the important files that are present in the to-dos folder. So the first file, as Venkat has pointed out, is views.py. So if you remember what URLs was, right? URL is sort of like a phone book, the URL patterns that we had seen earlier. So it says that if this is the URL, then go to that. But then what is that? Right? So that is actually a view. So what is a view? Well, I mean, in the English language, a view is just something that you see. So that's literally what this is. Views are literally just the pages that you see, the HTML pages that get rendered. Right? So in views.py, we don't actually put the HTML. Instead, what we say is that, oh, if this is the pattern, right, then you create a function that then points you to a particular view. So there are three components here. So just think about it as URLs, views, HTML files, right? So HTML files is what you actually see. And so the moment you type something on the browser and press enter, right, that is when it hits the URL. And then the URL decides, oh, that leads me to this view. And then you will say, oh yeah, that leads me to this particular, HTML file being rendered. So this is extremely important, right? The second important file that we're going to go with is models.py. So if you have a look at models.py, then in models.py, we basically create the table that you're going to see. So if you remember, if you have a look at the original repo, right, we showed you a table on which the database is. So how do you define that table, right? I mean, and the advantage with Django is it provides a way to define these tables without ever having to write a single line of SQL, right? So so you can kind of map Python code to an actual table or any other object that is present within a database through something known as the object relational mapper, right? So what you can do with the object relational mapper is, let us say that I want to create a table called to do, as you can see in the repository, right? So if you look at the table called to do, right, how do I create it? So a table would map to a class, right? So what does it mean? What does it mean? So if I create a class in models.py, that will create a table for SQL. If I create a variable in that class, then it will create a column. So, and we will see more about this object relational mapper later when we're actually building the model. But as of now, just think about this as a file that allows the app to communicate with the database. Now the other important file would be the admin file, admin.py. So admin.py basically allows us to take a model, right, and then say that take a model and then give that to Django, and then say that give me a UI for this model, right? That's literally all it is. But this is extremely important because Django comes up with this extremely powerful inbuilt admin module that allows you to basically control the entire database as an administrator without writing a single line of code, which is absolutely fantastic, which is what makes Django so robust. So if you look at the init.py, the apps.py, and the test.py, those are not really as important files right now, and for now you can just ignore them. Those will be used when you're trying to build much more larger scale applications. Have I missed anything?
No. Okay, thanks, Varun. So one more thing is that Django comes pre-built with its own simple small database called SQLite 3. So out of the box, it's not immediately necessary for you to go ahead and link it to your MariaDB or whatever Postgres SQL or whatever. You can just use this for now. So we'll be using this, and this is the default version, default database that comes with Django. To explain the flow of exactly what is happening, right? What I'll do is I will change this page into a simple hello world or hello something, hello from views or something in this project, so that we can see that it actually works and what is actually happening under the hood. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to copy two URL patterns from the repository. So in this window of VS Code, I have Varun's Django repo open. So you can find it. You can find everything exactly as it is over here. So I'm going to go to urls.py under to-do list, and I'm going to copy these two URLs and paste them here. Now, what does this do? Right? This
Hey, could you also include?
Oh, right. Path, comma, include. Yeah. So you import include, and I copied these two, right? So what does this essentially do? What it does is, on top of whatever path is provided here, right, it's going to append all the URL patterns found in the urls.py file of the to-dos app. Now, there is no urls.py file in the to-dos app. So we'll go ahead and create one. We have a urls.py file. Now let's go back to this for a second. So supposing in urls.py, we have /abc links to a certain function. Okay. What this means is on top of this, which is nothing, it'll append /abc, which will then link to a function. So that will mean that /abc itself links to another function. But if you see the next line over here, it'll append the same thing as over here, which is all the URLs from the to-dos app to to-dos /. So what this means is, in the browser, if I give /to-dos /abc or whatever, right, what will happen is it will link to a function which will be defined in this urls.py. Now we need to define what is actually there in this urls.py, and that also I'm going to copy from this repo, just in the interest of saving time. Okay, so over here, I'll just save the files. So over here, what is happening is these are all the URL patterns. So if the path is just nothing, it's just /, right? It is going to take you to views.index. So views is another file in the same app, and it is going to take you to the function called index inside this app. Similarly, if you give /add, it's going to take you to the add function. If you give /delete some primary key for the object, or for now just some number, right? It'll take you to the delete function inside the views file. Now we know that it's going from here to here, and this is pointing us next to views, but views is empty. So let's create these three simple functions and see if it works or not. So what I'm going to do is import HTTP response from Django.http. Okay. Then I'm going to define these three functions. So they are going to be index, add, and delete. So these are just simple Python functions. So def index, and this is going to have request as a parameter. And this will return a simple HTTP response which says hello from views.py. Right now, before I run this and show you and we can check if it works or not, what I'll do is, since this URL's file is already pointing to the other functions called add and delete, if I try running it right now, what's going to happen is it's going to throw an error saying it's pointing to this, but these two don't exist. So what are you trying to do here? So I'll just quickly add those. Return, I think I have to import, what is it, redirect, right?
Right, that's right. Redirect.
Redirect, return redirect slash
Tools.
Yeah, that's it, right?
Right.
So
the similar thing for
yeah. So now delete, right? When you say delete, you have to delete a specific to do. So for that, you need to have a primary key, something to identify which to do it is. So I'm going to pass ID over here along with request. I'm going to change this to delete. But for now, it's going to be empty.
Yeah.
So now that all the files are saved, what should be happening?
Hey, you need to install the app.
Oh, right. So we started an app called To-Dos, but we haven't told Django that you have to look for this app called To-Dos. So we just add it over here along with a comma. So what this one simple line does is that it says, look over here, you'll find something called To-Dos. Include that in everything that you do. So once you add that, what should be happening is, first you go to your browser over here and you type whatever it is that you want, right? So over here will be, it'll just be slash, because we're looking at the empty path. So what should be happening is URLs, it'll include everything from todo.urls. That will take us here. Now this is index. So it'll take us to the index function in views. And index over here will return hello from views.py. So over here, if I do enter, if I press enter over here, once I run the server, or if I do /todos, it should give the same output, which is hello from views.py. So it's not reached because I didn't run the server. So make sure to manage.py run server. Yeah, so it's open in localhost port 8000. There we go. So right now what's happening is it's going to root, then it's checking root in urls.py of To-Dos. Now another thing that I can do is /To-Dos. and it gives the same output because we have included it over here such that it works. Okay, Varun, is that it?
Right. Yeah. Just before. So if you can push it right now if you like, or you could just include the templates before you push
Oh,
it.
right. Yeah, I'll include templates.
Right. So actually, the reason we're kind of copy pasting so many things, we don't like it as such. I don't believe it really helps that much in learning, but we're kind of crushed for time. So sorry about that. But the thing is, all this stuff is available. Every single line that we are writing is there on the repository, and all the steps that we are taking is there in the repository. So you can like totally replicate this. And the main reason that we are like pushing the code and then I'm pulling it is to just show you how amazing a virtual environment is and how easy it is for me to replicate what he has done, what Venkat has done.
Okay, one more thing that I want to quickly mention here is in your git ignore, please make sure to always include your your environment name, whatever it is. So the whole point of creating an environment and downloading the packages separately is so that you don't have to push a 100 MB file to the cloud and download it every time you make a change. So if before you push to your repo, 100% make sure to include this. So this is to-do list underscore env, right? So it gets grayed out over here. It means it's not happening. So git state star, git commit -m added. Now, Varun, I've added the templates.
Okay, has it been pushed?
It's being pushed. Yeah, it's pushed. So, yep, it's there.
Yeah, I think it's been pushed. Yeah. Okay. Hey, the requirements.txt hasn't been pushed, I believe.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Requirements.txt is not there.
Okay, I'll just create it.
No. Just have a look. Requirements.txt. Yeah, no, it's there.
It's there.
Thing is, no, but it's not there in the repo. Just have a look once. Cool. Just push it again.
Oh yeah, it's not there.
Right. Just say git status once. Right. Git add dot. Do git add dot. Now commit it and push.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, guys. So like debugging is also a really important thing. Don't expect things to work out that well in general. So and frankly, you learn a lot more from debugging than you would learn from just blindly copying what somebody else is doing. So I really want you to go ahead and try this out yourselves and break things, make mistakes. Best way to learn. All right. So are we set? Yes, we're set. So now what I will do. Hey Venkat, should I start sharing my screen?
Sure. I'll just stop.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I hope my screen is being shared. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. All right. So let's begin. So I use this particular IDE called Pycharm. It doesn't really matter what IDE you use, but the reason I prefer Pycharm, right, what you see right here in your screen, is because Pycharm automatically does the entire virtual environment stuff for you, right? And so that's what makes Pycharm really cool. It does the entire the entire virtual environment stuff, and activating it, all that stuff is like off your hands. All that stuff is taken care of by Pycharm. So I would really recommend Pycharm as an IDE if you're interested. Anyways, so let me now just pull the changes. that Venkat has made. All right, let's see if these files have, yep, I have all the files. Right, now here is where requirements.txt really shines, right? So now, and this command is there in the repository too. You can just have a look at this, right? So all I need to do is I need to say pip3 install -r requirements.txt, and there you go. It has installed everything, all the things that Venkat had. So right now I have a identical virtual environment to Venkat without having to change anything, right? Which is just awesome. Now what I need to do now, if so, basically it means that now if I run the commands that he's running, it should work. Wait, just one sec. Let me. Is there a manage? No. To-do list. Yep, manage.py is there. Python 3 manage.py run server. All right, let's have a look at the local host, and there you go. That's the ease of the virtual environment. You're easily able to replicate exactly what the other person has done. So as you can see, now I am exactly at the point where Venkat has stopped. Now let me pick it up. So just to recap, the last thing that we were doing was just one second. I need to check if the templates. Yep. So the last thing that we were doing was just a basic hello world HTTP response, right? Now the thing is, what if I don't want just a HTTP response like a string, right? I want to actually go ahead and render like a proper file, right? So how do I do that? So I need to go to my views.py, and over here, instead of a HTTP response, right, I would use this function right here, this render function. So let's see if that actually changes anything. Render of, let me pick a particular file, just one second. Let's see what I am rendering here. Right, so the syntax would be request, comma, not index, let me just say simple list. Simple list.html. Right, now let's see if this works. All right, and there you go. I have a really simple HTML file which just says to-do list app up and running. So this has been rendered and this has been created. I'll explain what exactly is there in this file later. So right now, let us just continue with this. Now I'm going to go through one very important part of Django, some really awesome stuff, right? So when I say /admin, right, you remember there was a URL called /admin, right, in the main urls.py. So when I go through this, oh, excuse me. So, okay, yeah, right. So when I go through that, right, it gave an error. So why did it do that? Why did it give an error when I said /admin when admin actually exists over here, right? So the thing is, there's two very important commands that you need to be aware of right now, right? One is make migrations and the second is migrate. So what we're doing here, so what do these two things do? If you see, right, you end up getting this, in the beginning you end up getting this kind of, you have 18 unapplied migrations, right? So what exactly is a migration? A migration is what Django calls the process of taking something that's there in your models.py and actually putting it into your database. So let's do that, right? Let's go ahead and take something that's there in models and then actually put it in the database. So before that, I'm going to do something called, I'm going to create something called a super user. So what exactly is a super user? A super user is simply somebody who has administrative powers over a database, right? Which means that I can control everything if I'm a super user in a database. So let's test this out. So the way to create a super user is simply use python manage.py and say create super user. Just one second. Auth user is not present apparently. Create super user. Oh, right. Excuse me. First thing that we need to do is actually run the migrations. Extremely sorry about that. Python 3 manage.py, make migrations. All these commands are present in the repository, by the way, right? So make migrations, right? So have a look at this make migration. So what exactly does this command do? So this command says that just go through the entire application, look at all of the models that are present, right? And then kind of tell Django that these are the models present and create the queries, right? Which we can then use to create the tables or manipulate the tables in the database. And there you go. All right, so we have made migrations, and then let's try migrate. And there you go. So we have basically applied all of these migrations. When I said migrate, right, what it did was it took all the changes that were present in make migrations and then actually put them in the database, right? So let's try this now. Let's go ahead and say /admin. Oh, there you go. Now this entire thing was not created by me. It was automatically present in Django. That's what makes Django so amazing. You don't need to spend a lot of time trying to create a UI just to understand what the database is, right? All this stuff is automatically, just comes inbuilt in Django. But what do I give here as a username or a password, right? Over here, I would give the super user, right? So let's have a look at this. So now I'm going to create a super user, right? I'm going to create a super user with my name, my email address, my password. There you go, right? So a super user has been created. What does it mean that a super user has been created? It means that now I can log in with my name and my password. There you go. Wow. So you see this entire thing, right? All these tables, all this stuff, all this has been automatically created by Django. I had to do absolutely nothing. And if I create any more tables, which I'm going to create, they will automatically pop up here, and I will be able to control everything in them without having to do anything, which is absolutely amazing. All this comes out of the box with Django. So let's go. Let's go ahead and create a table. So how do we do that? How do we create a table? As I said, right now I'm just going to take it a bit further. So if you, as I spoke about object relational mapper, right? So if you have a look at this, right? If you look at, just one second, right? If you look at the table that is present over here, right? This table is called to do, right? So that's the name of the table. And it has all of these different different columns and then all of these different rows. So how do I create this in Django? So think about it this way. A table is a class, right? So what is the name of the table that I want? So class to do, and there you go. I have a table, right? But then how do I tell Django that this is not just a random class, but it's actually a table? How do I do that? So the way you do that is you say models.model. And there you go. Just by this one line, I'm telling Django that go ahead and create a table called to do, right? Okay, now that I've created this, how do I create these columns within the table, right? That's really simple. Again, I just need to say title is equivalent to title. What is this going to be? This is going to be a text field, right? A character field. So I'm going to say models dot character field with, let's put a max length of about 100. All right, let's have a look at the next attribute, content. So what do I put for the content? Content could be a models.text field attribute, right? Then created at. So this created at, right? This creating, I want a time in which they created a particular task, right? How do I kind of tell Django that you need to automatically take the timestamp of when this was created, when the create button was clicked, right? So for that, I would need to, I need to import a particular library, right? So from datetime, that's the name of the library, import module called datetime. It's the same name. It's a weird way of naming things. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, so datetime dot, and that's it. the moment I say datetime.now, right, it automatically gets created with that particular timestamp, and I don't need to do anything about it. Then what next? Priority. So let us just make a priority as an integer field, right? Models dot integer field, and there you go. We're done with our class, right? So right now, how do I actually tell Django that, oh yeah, go ahead and actually make this table? You remember those commands that we had earlier? Make migrations. So make migrations now says, oh, okay, yeah, you need to create the model to do, and then it basically creates the query for that. And then Python 3 manage.pymigrate, what it does is it actually goes and then runs the command, and then it actually creates the table to do. Let's hope this works. There you go. That's run. This means that the table to do is now up and running, right, in the database. So let's go and test that out. I said that you can see whatever is there in the database in your admin. But wait, it's not there. Why is that? So the thing is, does that mean that the table is not created? No, not really. The table has been created, but it has not been created. It has not been put UI of the admin, right? It's not been put in this particular site. It's been created though. So how do I tell Django that show me the site? It's really simple. I need to register my models here in admin.py. Right. So let's start this. So it's really simple to register your model. You just need to say admin dot site dot register and the name of your model. So the name of my model is to do. So I need to import this. Now the advantage with Pycharm is it auto imports. That is, it automatically goes through your entire application and then finds where your particular variable or object is, and then it automatically brings it out for you. This is actually why I like the IDE so much, right? So there you go. Now that I have registered this, right, and I've given this change here, just 1 second, right. Okay, dot models import to do. All right, yeah, this should be working right now. There you go. To do's is there. So now if I want to create a to do, it's really simple. I can just say add to do, and then I can give it any title, like to do one, right? And then the is to do one content. I'm not as creative as Venkat over here, so I don't know what to write. Right. So anyways, so let's see. So to do one content and priority is 1. There you go. And let me create another object, right? To do 2 and to do 2 content, let's say, and 2. There you go. Now there's an issue here, isn't it? I have kind of like taken so much care in making all these objects and made it nice and had all these had the entire table built, and then after the table is built I put all the columns, but then it just says to do object 1, to do object 2. At a glance, it's possible for me to know exactly which object this is, and there is, right? So what I would need to do is, I'm not sure if how many of you are actually aware of this, but every class that's present in Python, right, it has a particular function, right, and we're going to override that function. That function is __str __ and self. So what exactly does this function do? So if you take any class in Python, let's say print class, right, just the class name, print to do, then what it will do is it will look for so within that object, right, the instance of the class, it looks for this particular function within that object, and then prints whatever this. You can return something else. Instead of returning to do object 2, return this, return the title, right? Return the title, so that I will know exactly what is happening. And there you go. So let me just refresh this page, and automatically these are changed. Now I know exactly which to do this is. And then I can have a look, I can change something, and I can edit it, and all this is really cool. But all this is all right, all this admin stuff is pretty cool, but then what is, right? This stuff is still like pretty plain and boring. How do I get whatever is there in the database, right, displayed on here? So for that, we would have to make a few changes. First thing is these templates, right? So there's a templates folder that is actually in the repository. Okay, just have a look at the repository. It should be within to-dos. It's within the app, right? And there's these few, and all these files are present over here. I would request that you go ahead and just copy paste all these files, or you could just clone the entire repository itself, and all these files would be available for you, right? So the reason I am not actually typing files is because it would simply take too long, and we do not have as much time, right? So let's just have a look at the application as it stands right now. So this is what it looks right now, right? Kind of boring. So how do I get everything that's present in my database and put it over here in the to-do list app? So the way I do that, right, is I just created, so what you're seeing right now is a simple, stupid list in HTML, right? So let's have a look at this. So if you actual HTML file, right, that is producing this out. So when I say slash, right, if you remember, right, or when I say slash, or when I put nothing over here, right, then what it first to, over here, it first goes to urls.py of to-do list, and then it sees, oh, okay, and then it says go to to-dos.urls. So it goes over here, and then says, okay, if there's nothing, then put the index. So then it has a look at the index, and its index says, return this. Return the render of this thing, of the simple list.html. That's why. But I don't want the simple list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all the objects of to-do that are present in the database, right? So how am I going to do that? First thing that I need to do is I need to import the to-do object in the first place from .models. Dot means search within the same folder. .models import to-do. There you go. I have imported to-do. Right, so now this to-do model is available for me. So how do I use it, right? So I'm going to create a simple variable called to-dos, and I'm going to assign to-dos the value of to-do dot objects dot all. So let's just to explain what this file actually, what this line actually does, right? Let's just go back to the simple, table, right? So over here, right? If the table name, right, if the table is a class, and if all the columns within the table, is a variable, then what are the rows in the table? The rows in the table are actually the objects, the different instances of the objects, right? So when I say to-do.objects.all, I am saying get me all the rows that are present in the table, right? So, okay, fine. Now that I've gotten all the rows, I'll show you that these are actually all the rows. So let me just print to-dos, and it should print me, a list of objects. So let's just have a look. Okay, I have saved this. Now I'm just going to go back and refresh this page. All right. As you can see over here, it has basically printed, all the to-dos that are present. So there's to-do 1 over here and to-do 2 over here, right? So all this stuff is present. Now we know that to-dos is basically a set of all the objects that are present in to-do. So how do we use this, right? So I'm going to create a dictionary, right? So how do I pass this to-dos to my HTML file? So the way I would do that is I'm just going to create a simple dictionary called context, which basically means I'm going to give context to what the HTML file needs to do. And within this, I'm going to just create a simple string. So dictionary, it basically maps any two iterables, right? So if a string is an iterable, and I'm going to give it to-dos, which is a set, which is also an iterable. So what I'm saying is all the information that's present in the to-dos object, to-do set, is now present in the to-do string. And this is what I'm then going to pass. The entire context I'm going to pass to my HTML. All right, that's great. So I have passed the data, but the data still doesn't appear. Why? Because of the simple list.html. If you look at, if I could just show you, right? If you look at the simple list.html, right, it doesn't really look that good. It's really simple. So let us see how I can list all the to-dos. So I've created another file called list with to-dos. It's really similar to simple.html, right? It's just got, the title and, a simple h1, and it's got, the list items, right, of an unordered list. But there is a small change. Over here, I have added, a few weird lines, right? So what is this stuff? So first thing, I'm creating a for loop, right? So it needs to be within this particular syntax, by the way, right? So it's, curly braces with 2 percentage signs. And between that, you need to write your syntax for this. So I'm going to say for to do in to-dos. What exactly is to-dos? To-dos is this string we have passed, right? So let's just go back to, over here. So if you have a look at this, then, for to do in to-dos, right? Give me all of this. Give me to-do.title, give me to-do.content, give me the priority, give me the time created at, and all of this stuff is just simple HTML, right? Just saying print this out on the, print this out on the web page. So let's have a look. So now what I need to do is instead of rendering simple list, I'm going to render list with to-dos.html. I'm going to render a different page. There you go. Let's see if that changes. And there you go. It's automatically giving a list of all the objects that are present in my database, right? So now the thing is, I could go to admin and add an object, right? And then that object would again reflect over here, right? So that's so basically what this does, to-dos, it gets all of the objects, and then I'm giving that object to this dictionary, and then I'm passing that dictionary to the HTML file, and then this particular syntax over here takes whatever data has been passed to the HTML file, which is to-dos, and then just iterates through that in a for loop, and then prints out the pass of the list. There you go. So this, at least with this, right, the simple index is done. Now we need to have a look at the two big functions, right, that we're going to do. So if you had a look at the original, product that we're going to build over here, right, you can see that there is a form which we are using to create, right, a particular to-do, and there is a form that we're using to delete. Let's focus on the create right now. So what URL is the create going to map towards, right? So let's just have a look at urls.py. So okay, so I give a particular URL, it goes to to-do.urls. Okay, now if I want to add something, then I have to add it to /add, which means that I need to go, I need to go over here, and then I need to say /add, and there you go. But it doesn't really do anything, because the moment you say /add, what does /add do? What does add do over here? It just redirects you to to-dos. Now thing is, for now we just did that so that the errors don't crop up saying that there's nothing happening, but I'm going to keep the redirect over here. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the HTML file itself. So if you look at this, right, this is the exact same syntax that we had earlier for to do in to-dos, and for all the stuff is exact same as was there with list with to-dos. But in list with add.html, right, I'm just adding a form at the top. So what exactly does this form do? So what this form does is it says that so basically this is just some, it's got some boring HTML, label, and then input, and then content, and then input, and all that stuff, basically all the text boxes and the drop down menus and all that stuff. But there's only 3 important things over here. One is the submit button, right, the one that says create. The moment you click create, right, what happens is it goes over here, right, and so this is the second important thing, it's the action of the form. So if you look at this action, right, it has a kind of similar look to it as something like the for, right, the similar syntax. So what exactly does this do? This says that whatever information that you find over here, right, whatever information I have typed, I have entered over here, right, when you click submit, send all of that data to /add. That's exactly what this does. I hope that's clear, right? So all this data is going to be sent to /add. How is it going to be sent to /add? Through a post request. So there are, if you're not aware, there are a few types of requests. Post is usually used when you want to go and actually manipulate something in the database, when you want to change something in the database. And right now we want to do that. Whatever task the user has entered, right? When you click create, you want to go ahead and actually enter that into the database. So all right, so at least I hope this form, right, what this URL add thing does, it just says that send the data via a post request that has been entered, send the data that has been entered over here via a post request to URL/add. That's it. So and all of that happens when you click create. If you don't click create, then the action does not happen in the first place. All right. So now at least we are clear with how the user sends the data to the backend. But how do we handle the data? First of all, the question is, where does the data go? When I give it to /add, where does the data actually go? Oh yeah, I'm very sorry, pardon me. I missed one very important thing. This CSRF token that you see over here. So the CSRF token is actually a pretty important part of of the form over here. And if the CSRF token is not present, then the form will not work. So why is that? Why is this CSRF token so important? So if you have a look at your settings.py, right, over here there's something called a secret key, and it also says security warning, keep the key used in production secret, and whatever stuff, right? So what exactly is this stuff, right? So I'm not going to explain exactly what that does, but let's just say that is a particular code, and it's going to use that code to produce a token, right? So and what is going to actually be used with that token? So it's going to use that code and make a token. So what's the point of making all this token and sending it? It's authentication. It is to ensure that you are the person, an authorized user is the one who is actually clicking create, right? Because you could create a bot that would automatically send these kinds of post requests and everything. So this prevents that. This provides a layer of authentication, a layer of security to ensure, right, that the person who is actually sending the post request is a legit person and is not somebody who is trying to manipulate and play with your database, and screw up your business. So, and this is also an amazing feature of Django. It gives inbuilt security, pretty powerful stuff. So okay, so I have explained this stuff about how data is sent from the HTML file, but where does the data go? It goes to /add. So again, it's going to come over here. It's going to have a look at the URLs. Okay, so it's going to slash, and then it's going to urls.py. Over here it sees /add. So when you go to /add, execute views.add. So let's have a look at views.add. There you go. So now all of that data ends up over here. So how do I get this particular data? And how do I get this data, and how do I add this data to the database? So for this, I'm actually going to copy paste a few lines of code. I'm sorry about that, but it's actually due to the time crunch that's there right now. Just give me 1 second. So it's going to be in views.py. It's going to be this, right? All right, so this is the actual ad. Now let me explain what this actually does. So you see I have passed in request over here, right? So what is this request actually? The request is the actual, the form action that you see over here, right? What this sends, right? That request is then caught over here in this function. Now that I've caught this request, I'm going to say if the request method is post, only in this case, do something. If it's not, then it might be some malicious actor, right? That it might be somebody else who's trying to manipulate something if it's not a post request. So in that case, don't do anything, right? All right. So then what am I going to do now? How am I going to extract this data, right? Because in the form, I'm actually giving 3 different kinds of data. I'm giving the title, I'm giving the content, and I'm giving the priority. So how do I actually access this data? So within this request object, there's something called post. It's a dictionary, right? So when I say request.post of title, right, and then I say take this data, put it in title variable. Similarly, take content data, put in content variable. Take priority data, put in priority variable. All right. So now I have done that, and then print those things, just for a sanity check, just to ensure that whatever I have entered is the right thing. All right. So now we have got the data, but what next? What do I do with this data? Right now, what I need to do is I need to create an object. Why am I creating an object? If you remember from the object relational mapper, when you create an object, of a class, from a class, right, that equates to a row in the database, row in the table. So when I'm saying to do is equivalent to, this object to do, and then I'm going to initialize the class by saying title is this, content is this, priority is this, right? Then what I'm doing in a sense is doing two things. One is creating a to do object, also creating a row. So when I say to do.save, this actually gets inserted into the database, right? And so what would happen is now the database would have an extra to do. And then after that, anyways, I'm just going to redirect it back. So why am I redirecting it back? Because the moment I redirect it, then this will again go ahead and read everything that's there in the database and then list it. So it gives you, it kind of creates the illusion of actually adding something. So let's go ahead and test this out. Excuse me, just 1 second. I just want to add one thing. Right, there is a change there. Instead of list with to-dos, I need to say list with add. Yeah, hopefully this should make the difference. There you go. I have an entire form here, right? So let's test it out. Let's try and add something. Let's say, so I have to do 1 and to do 2. Let's just make to do 3. Again, extremely creative. To do 3 content. Sarcasm doesn't work when you're alone. Okay, all right. To do 1, I'm the only one, man. Yeah. Okay, anyways, so to do 1, to do 2, to do 3. Okay, as you can see, to do 3 has been created, and it has been created at this time, and all that, good information about the content and all that stuff. But again, as a sanity check, when you go over here, it says, yeah, this is the title I got, this is the content I got, and this is the priority I got. I hope like all this stuff is clear. So now this basically finishes the add part, right? The entire add part of the to-do. I'll take probably 15 more minutes and we should be done pretty quickly after that, right? So, okay, so I hope till here everything is clear, right? How we add something, and the moment you add something, right, it goes to this particular add URL, it goes to this URL, right? And then that information is passed over here to the view, and then it's caught over here as a request, and then you extract the data from the request, and then you insert the data table, and then you just redirect it, and then you go back over here, right? So that's just how easy it is to create a full-fledged website. Now, we didn't put in the CSS and all that stuff, but you could create, a full-fledged website really easily with something like Django, using this particular thing. All right, so now we have finished off adding, a particular piece of data. How about deleting that data? Right? How do you delete something from the database? Now, if I want to delete something, right, I cannot just say delete. I need to tell what I need to delete, right? So how do I tell what I need to delete? For that, I'm going to go to the list with delete.html, right? So now again, as you can see, it's kind of building just one by one. So if you look at list with delete.html, everything is the same except you see this, even the for loop and all that stuff is the exact same, except for this one small thing. Instead, of this just being all of this, just pure information, right? I am adding a button and I'm making this into a form, right? So instead of each li, right, each list item being just a simple piece of information like this, it is now a form in itself, right? So now for each to do, it basically goes ahead and creates this form. And as I mentioned before, if you're making a form, if you're basically creating any kind of request, then you need the CSRF token. All right. Now, what is the only operational part of this form? Because all of this stuff is just content. This is not any input. Nothing is there. The only operational part is this delete button over here. This delete button. And so what should happen when I click the delete button, right? When I click the delete button, it should delete that from the database and then go back to the main page to show that this particular thing has been deleted. So, all right, that's fine. So I'm going to say URL delete, but that's not enough, right? As I said before, I need to know which particular row to delete. How do I know that? So for that, I'll need to also give in the to-do ID. Now, why am I giving in the to-do ID and not the title or the content or the priority, right? Now, that is because this ID, right, this particular ID thing is created by Django. I am not creating this. If you would have noticed in the class that I made, ID was not created over here. I did not create a particular variable called ID, right? all this stuff is created by Django, and Django will guarantee that whatever is there in this ID is unique, right? That's one of the conditions for it to be a primary key. So as you see, so now that I know that ID will always be unique, I can always pass in the ID, because I know that the proper one will be deleted always, because regardless of what, ID will always stay the same. There you go. So how do I pass the to-do ID to this? It's really simple. When I say URL delete, think of it as /delete, right? When I say to-do ID, just think of it as URL, whatever the URL is, /delete /1 or /2 or whatever is the value of this particular ID, right? All right, so let's again kind of retrace the steps of this. When I click on this delete button, what should happen? It should go ahead, it should go to /delete / a number. So first it will go over here, it will say, okay, fine, there's nothing over here. So then it will go to urls.py and then it will search, no, not nothing, not at delete. Over here, you can see that the pattern is actually delete /ID. So what exactly is this ID stuff? Why is this ID in these weird, angular brackets, right? Why is it in this, right? So if I did not put these angular brackets, right, then Django would treat it as a string, and we don't want that. We don't want it to be /delete /ID, right? We want it to be /delete /1 or /2 or /3 /delete /3 or /delete /4, right? So we want it to be in that way. So what this particular angular bracket says is, it says that this is actually a variable. This is not a string, this is a variable, and this can change. And what is the advantage of putting it over here? That means that I will be able to extract this ID directly. So when I say request ID, right, Django will automatically know what ID I am talking about, right? So again, let's just go back to the URLs, right? If I go back to the URLs, then it says /delete /ID. So then this is sent to the views.delete function. So let's go to the delete function, and delete function says request ID. So how do I delete something? First of all, I need to have the sanity check, right? If request method is post, right? If the request method is not post, oh yeah, why is the request method post again? Because the HTML just says that it's a post, right? Over here, I just said method is post. That's the only reason why it is a post, right? So let's just go back over here, and it makes more sense to make it a post request rather than a get request. But all right, anyways. So now that I have this, right? Now how do I get? See, if you look at this particular query, right, todo.objects.all. Now I'm getting all the objects that are present in my database, right? But I don't want that. I want only the object which has this particular ID. How do I do that? How do I get the object that has only that ID? So first thing, I'm just going to create a variable.todo. Todo is going to be the todo is going to be the todo that I'm going to delete, right? So now I'm going to say todo.objects.get. So todo.objects is all the rows, correct? todo.objects.get, I can use this to get one specific row or a bunch of rows which have which agree to one particular condition. And what is the condition over here? The condition is that the ID of the row should be equal to the ID that I have. So this first ID is actually a parameter. This first ID refers to this ID, and the second ID is actually a number like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So if there is a row in which the ID is equal to 1 or ID is equal to, get me that row. All right. So now I have the object that I want to delete. How do I delete it? Really simple. todo.delete. Done. There you go. And it's simple as that to go ahead and delete the entire row from your particular table. So let us test this out. Now again, to test this out, I need to basically go incrementally, and now that I have finished list with add, I need to go ahead and say list with delete. There you go. Now let me run this again. Okay, so you can see that between now beneath this, right, every single list element, right, every single list element also says delete. It has this button delete. Right, now remember that it's not just that I've added a button, I've made this entire thing into a form. So the moment I click delete, right, let me just create a new to do first, ensure that this is also working. With my luck, it's probably not. Oh, it's working, go. Okay, anyways. Yeah, so let's. Hey, come on, man. Venkat, you know how these things go, right? You don't expect them to work the first
Yeah.
time. But we're getting distracted, anyways. So, yeah, so just have a look at this. Okay, so I've created this to do for. All right, that's cool. So I've created this to do for. Now, if I click delete, then this should vanish, basically. So when I click delete, what should happen? It should go to slash delete slash whatever the ID of this is, and then what will happen is it will go, go through the URLs and then find this view. It will find that row, delete that row, and then redirect me back to to-dos. Let's hope this works. Boom, that worked. Awesome. So there you go. This is your basic create and delete thing, right? So this is like the basic functionality of your entire app. All right, this seems to work, but we're still just missing one small thing, right? And this small thing is the priorities. How do I assign priorities? Right now, oh yeah, sorry, I've already assigned priorities. How do I segregate to-dos based on the priorities? And that is actually really simple. That has nothing to do with Python, actually, right? That so now finally we go back to the main file, right? We have gone all the way from simple list to list with to-dos, list with add, list with delete, and now we are finally there in index.html. This is, this is like the daddy of all the HTML files that are present over here. Venkat, don't laugh. Don't laugh.
Who
I
would
regret
laugh?
saying that. I regret saying that. Okay, anyways. There's just 5 more minutes, Venkat. Just let this be, okay? All right, so let's go ahead. So if to do dot priority, okay, yeah, sorry, because of you, Venkat, I lost my flow, man. Because of you. Okay, anyways. Okay, so let's just go ahead. Let's just. So, what is the difference? What is the difference over here? How do I get the priority stuff? In this particular app, it's so all I'm doing is I'm just creating multiple lists, right? So instead of one list over here, I have 3 different lists, each under a priority. Okay, so if you look at this, all this code is the exact same, right? It's just been like repeated 3 times. So what is the difference? How do I say that only the things in which priority is 1, only to-dos in which priority is 1 comes over there? It's really simple, just by an if statement, right? So this is very, very similar to Django syntax, except if you want to get this Django syntax in HTML, right? Then what you need to do is you need to put this, whatever, curly bracket and 2% signs. So I'm just going to say that, okay, you go through all the to-dos, and only if the to-do has priority 1, right, then go ahead and list those out. Otherwise, don't. Always remember to have an endif and an end for. All right, so that is kind of required for this particular syntax. All right, let's go to the second, priority 2, right? If you look at priority 2 again, if again go through all of the to-dos, right, and then if priority is 2, right, if the priority is 2, only then list it out under this, otherwise don't. Similarly, go through all the to-dos, if priority is 3, list those out. So let me just make a small change over here in views.py. Instead of list with delete.html, I'm just going to say index.html. This is the actual file, and everything should just work. There you go. Automatically things are segregated. So let's just try adding another thing. Let's just add it to do 4 to priority 3. Let's say. There you go. It has been added to priority 3, and everything has been segregated. So there you go. That is basically our app that we are building, and I hope you've had fun. I hope you have learned something. And please, if there are any questions or anything, leave it in the comments below. Or I'm not really sure what else to do. Venkat, you're the host. You take it up from here.
Okay. So, guys, I hope you've learned at least a little bit with us rambling for 2 hours. So make sure to participate in the Amigos quiz, because you can test yourself how much you have learned in this webinar, and you can also win some money. So why not win some cash and learn at the same time?
Right? I mean, even if you did like Django, just go for the cash, man.
So that's it from our side. I think we'll end the stream now.
Thanks.
guys.
Thank you so much for attending it. I mean, thank you so much to all 3 of you who attended the stream.
Joking Jokes.
It
Actually,
includes the
thank you a
two of
lot.
us. Yeah, thanks a lot. So I hope you guys have understood it. And these repositories, right, that we have. Hey, Venkat, I'll just push the code into your repository also. All right, these repositories that we have, right? These are open source, right? So you can just go ahead and change anything you like. Please feel free to give a pull request or anything like that. What happened?
I'm so sorry. Nothing. Let's wrap this up.
What happened?
Nothing. My mom came. That's all.
Chill, bro. No, who cares? Like what? The one guy who's watching this doesn't. doesn't
Okay.
care you, so.
So, Mohib, if you're there, let's end this. I think we've done everything. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
guys so much.
Thank you guys, and basically just thank you for tolerating us for 2 hours. 1.5 hours. I can't tolerate myself for that long. So
Participate in the quiz.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening, guys.